The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you today by Draft. Looking for the best fantasy sports site on the planet? Sign up with Draft today. For a limited time only, our listeners will receive $3 matching their first deposit of at least $10. Use promo code DTR or visit draft.com/DTR to sign up now. Draft. Fantasy for the people. Now enjoy the show.
Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Wood, touchdown. LA. Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge, and Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Leno got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did! Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA! Picked off by John Johnson. Well, it's Dante Fowler who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 255. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. And we come to you guys after the Rams beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Wembley Stadium in London, 24-10. We got some stuff to talk about. Obviously, that they didn't blow them out like we expected, and honestly, I gotta give Zach Taylor's crew a lot of credit. They hung in there. They fought until the bitter end. But the Rams do come away with a victory. They go to 5-3 heading into the bye. Their next game will be against Pittsburgh, and that'll be in Pittsburgh. But before we can even think about that, let's just talk about this game. Alexis, what are your biggest thoughts following this game?
Well, it obviously wasn't the blowout that we thought it was going to be. We thought that the Rams were going to go in there and blow out the Bengals, which they didn't do, but they still got the win, which is good. There's a lot of things that they did that impressed me. There's a lot of things that they did that disappointed me. But like you said, got to give it to Zach Taylor and his Bengals because they played a hell of a lot better than anybody thought they were going to play. I mean, they're a team that, hasn't gotten a win yet, but, they did look pretty impressive, playing against us, and definitely played a lot better than I thought they would do. I think, a big centerpiece of this game is Jared Goff. I thought he played a lot, I think he's playing better than he has been, obviously, to start the season. There's still a lot of throws that he made that were really questionable and just kind of looked like, stupid decisions. And again, throwing at receivers' feet and things like that he needs to clean up. But overall, I thought that he did good. I thought the Rams, were kind of getting back into the swing of things a little bit. And, like I said, I think they could have blown out the Bengals. They should have blown out the Bengals, and they didn't. But nevertheless, a win is a win, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I was a little underwhelmed with the offensive, the points scored. I thought the defense is, it's weird. They only gave up 10 points, but I still feel like we didn't get enough from the defense. I know, they had 6 or so sacks. You had Okoronkwo getting involved. You had Fowler, Aaron Donald, but it just seemed to me like this defense wasn't quite as tenacious as the week before, and a lot of that could be because of how far they traveled. I mean, it's not normal for your body to go from LA to then, kind of just stationing yourself in Atlanta and then preparing there and then, flying out to London. So, it's to be expected. Obviously, they get the win. As you could see just from, the post-game videos that, the Rams social media team always posts, it's just a constant reminder that this is more about the fans and the analysts and the people that are going to talk about the team, but the people that are on the team just want that W. And I think that, it's really important, obviously, to realize that, because I think a lot of people don't. I just, once again, I wasn't a huge fan of, taking my foot off the gas. In my opinion, I think, looking back at the Falcons game, my biggest problem with that was that, your offense hasn't been amazing this year. These are valuable, in-game reps. This is your opportunity to really, not showcase your offense, to kind of get your offense on track. Try some things that you can't try when you're actually trying to win a football game. Try to be more creative. Try to, get other personnel involved. Maybe a Mike Thomas, maybe a Joshua Reynolds. I mean, losing Brandon Cooks in this game to another concussion, I might add, is going to put the Rams in a difficult situation. Josh Reynolds has looked really poor up until this game, and I thought he looked really good. But for that, with that being said, I would not have taken my foot off the gas pedal. I would have tried to acclimate Mike Thomas and Joshua Reynolds way more than they did, in the third and the fourth quarter. And the reason for that is because you want to get Jared and those guys on the same page and in game, because now you don't know how long you're going to be without Cooks, and they kind of just got thrown into the fray.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Josh Reynolds. And, he really impressed me this past game. I mean, I'll be honest, I have not been really high in the Josh Reynolds train, for the majority of his career. But, like you mentioned, Brandon Cooks went out. Josh Reynolds had to step in, and I thought he did well. He obviously got a touchdown. He had some good passes, and, I think he's a guy who obviously the Rams see a lot of value in. I believe he was, a mid-round draft pick, someone that the Rams, like I said, invested in. So, I thought he had a hell of a game. And, Cooper Kupp obviously played phenomenal. I mean, he was kind of the story of that game. Again, we continue to see that he is Jared Goff's number one target, sometimes, to the detriment of the team, in a way. But, I just think Cooper Kupp is just absolutely phenomenal. So it's always fun to watch him play, especially, his story and coming back from the ACL this year and all that. So it's fun to watch Cooper Kupp succeed. And, for Jared Goff to be able to, kind of hit, receivers more frequently this game, I should say, which, wasn't surprising because, I mean, all over, this Bengals defense is just downright terrible. So we were kind of expecting that this would happen.
Yeah, I think I will give them credit. On the first drive, the Bengals secondary, they have some nice pieces back there. Jesse Bates, Sean Williams, and I think William Jackson III is one of the best corners in football. And they really were able to shut down the Rams on the first drive in the red zone. I thought they did a nice job with that because the Rams really marched down the field to start the game. I mean, they went with a bootleg, or not really a bootleg, but they went with a fake, and Jared Goff threw, pretty much a screen pass to, Robert Woods, who was going in motion, and, he had Jesse Bates kind of off balance, and, once Woods got past, the first guy, I mean, he was, going to go for 30 yards, and that really is what, kicked off that drive. But, definitely some things to like. I like the play designs. I like that, Jared Goff finishes averaging 12 yards per pass. I think, things like that are in the right direction, right? They're getting back to where they were. They're not there yet, and I don't think that they're 2 games away from being there yet. But if they continue to progress, they're going to get there in time for the postseason, which brings me to my next point. It's really interesting to me that Todd Gurley gets 10 carries, 44 yards, touchdown, and he gets a target in the passing game. And then they kind of just shut him down for the second half. And it's really interesting because it just makes me wonder, are the Rams trying to outsmart everybody else? Are they trying to fool everyone with Todd Gurley? Make it seem like this knee injury is a serious thing, and then kind of use it as an excuse to, quote-unquote, load manage Todd, and then unleash him at the end of the year. Because I wonder, because that's a real, I mean, that I think that would 100% throw people off. And I think when you have a running back that has had as many touches as Todd Gurley over the last 2 years, and then you kind of pull back here, and you're not really making him do what the Saquon Barkleys and the Christian McCaffreys of the league are doing. While those guys are kind of, they're getting more, up there in touches, and they're getting tired, and, they're having to come out more and more. Todd Gurley, he's going to be refreshed. So it's a really interesting thing. I like that, obviously, Darrell Henderson gets an opportunity in this one. The Rams only ran for 98 yards against the 32nd run defense in the league. But I did like the little things. The offensive line still has a long way to go. So I think, in time, things will open up. But right now, I didn't mind that offensive performance, in the ground game. As far as Cooper Kupp, I thought he was phenomenal. I think the way he played, he could have broken the single game receiving yards record held by none other than Flipper Anderson of the Los Angeles Rams. I 100% think he could have. I think the Rams really took, the foot off the gas pedal, and they kind of went into conservative mode, and that gave the Bengals an opportunity to really fight and stay in this game. They really at no point ever went away. They were able to sack Andy Dalton 5 times. Mixon looked like, he was going to run all over this team, but, the defense buckled down, and, 17 carries for 66 yards. And, I was definitely, again, there are some things that I didn't like, but, again, there are some things that I did like. So I think, all in all, the Rams played a solid game. I think we're just more so, it's like you're playing an 0-8 team, so you really don't have much to gain except for the little things that you and I will point out that maybe, the next person wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the defense. I mean, Dante Fowler has just continued to ball out. I mean, there's no other word for it, really. He's been, really fun to watch, the past, really all season, and especially this game against the Bengals. I mean, he's making a case to get paid, whether it be by the Rams or anybody else. So he's been fun to watch. I mean, you mentioned Aaron Donald, all the guys on defense, even Jalen Ramsey, who didn't have quite as good of a game as he did against the Falcons, but I mean, he still did his job. He still, played great. So I think there's a lot of positives. There's a lot of things to look at from this Rams-Bengals game to be excited about. I mean, granted, yes, it's the Bengals. I mean, we're aware of that. We're aware that, the Bengals are a team that have not won a game this year and that they don't have much, quote unquote talent, but it's a win. It was a chance for, the Rams players to work on what they needed to work on. Took a step forward this game because it had been pretty bad, honestly, the last couple of games. I mean, the play calling, people have been so frustrated with it. It hadn't been up to par or what we've been used to. So I think, slowly but surely it's starting to get back to that. So I just think overall, there's a lot of positive things that, you can take away from this game.
Yeah, of course. And, I think the real good thing for the Rams, I think in the long term, you see, obviously Aaron Donald is not going to slow down. That's to be expected. But you see guys like, and obviously depending on, if they bring these guys back, because of course contracts and everything, Marquise Christian's playing well. Corey Littleton, of course, is playing well. And Okoronkwo, and of course Troy Hill, Okoronkwo is turning himself into a legitimate starting candidate. And, I mean, I think he's making Samson Ebukam expendable. I mean, I think I said this last week, but once again, Okoronkwo getting a sack and almost another sack. He looks really good coming off the edge. He looks exactly like he did. And, the player that I fell in love with coming out of Oklahoma, I just love, his constant fight. Doesn't give up on anything, and he's just a lot of fun to watch. But it's a really good sign for this defense to have that. And the leading tackler of the game, Taylor Rapp, was all over the place making tackles. Sticking his nose right into the trenches. He's somebody that continues to impress me. I think the Rams have some pieces here for the long term. Right now, this is a banged-up defense, and they just held this team to 10 points. Now, albeit This is an 0-8 football team. But they still held this team to 10 points without, Aqib Talib, who they might trade, without John Johnson, and without Clay Matthews. So, I'm really interested to see how this defense will look when John Johnson, Clay Matthews, and whoever is out there is back. Because I don't know, the whole Talib thing, I don't know if they'll get a trade done, and I don't know if it's going to be a player for player or a player for pick, but if they decide to not trade him, then he'll be back. So, I'm really interested to see fully healthy defense, what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think it'll be scary.
And then, you look at the offense, and again, I thought, once again, you get some solid play from the offensive line. Could have been better, of course. But Jared, I think, had plenty of time to throw, despite the fact he was going up against guys like Carlos Dunlap and Sam Hubbard and Geno Atkins. I think they did a solid job protecting him. Now, this kind of goes back to our point, from previous shows. The Rams' offensive line has already been battle-tested. They've gone up against Nick Bosa. They've gone up against Gerald McCoy, Mario Addison, Kawan Short, DeForest Buckner. I mean, you name it. I mean, they've gone up against it. So, this is probably one of the easier matchups that they've had. And, I mean, I got to say, like, right off the cuff, I really like the way David Edwards is settling in. He still is going to make his rookie mistakes, but I love his ultra aggressiveness, trying to get to the second level and trying to be a convoy, for the ball carrier. I've noticed that. This is somebody that is continuing to, play, and he's going to play through the whistle, and I think the Rams have a really good one in David Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, David Edwards has impressed. Yes, he, had some silly penalties. But it was the second game. I mean, it's the second game in the NFL, so that was understandable. And again, a guy who I think is really, really going to impact this Rams offensive line positively. I think he's been playing super well, and someone who I'm just happy is now in that starting lineup. And it was a guy that we desperately needed earlier in the season, and we finally got him.
Yeah, and it's it's going to be interesting. Obviously, with the bye, you can go one or two ways. You can obviously come out flat, end up going to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is coming off the bye this week, and then, of course, the week that they play the Rams, they'll have already played 2 games. You could come off the way they kind of did against the Dolphins, at least from the start. The game is still going on, so we don't know if they're going to end up finishing that off and winning the game, but they can come out flat or they could come out firing on all cylinders. There's really only 2 ways to come out of a bye. And, I think the Rams, and I said this is the perfect time for a bye week. I think that the defense started to look lethargic. I think that it is about time that they get a break. I think that, the problem is the way Jared Goff was playing earlier in the year, people forget how often the defense was on the field. There was a lot of 3-and-outs. There was, a lot of turnovers, putting, the defense in a bad situation, putting them in, rough territory. And, I think that's definitely starting to wear on them. So I think this bye comes at a perfect time. Had they had to wait, for a week 12 bye like last year, I'd be worried about them dropping a couple games, the next few games upcoming. But I got to say, I'm feeling good about where the Rams are at, and I'm really interested to see if they're going to be active during the trade deadline. Because, if they're still trying to make a move and maybe get a Trent Williams, or now Cordy Glenn, who played in this game, he's now going to be available. So, there's definitely some names out there that could still help this team. I don't really understand the cornerback because I think people just aren't realizing how good Troy Hill is playing. I do want to highlight that Troy Hill had the best PFF grade of any defensive player in this game. And Troy Hill was constantly picked on because Dalton didn't want anything to do with Jalen Ramsey. And it shows you the effect of Jalen Ramsey on your defense, because now, Andy Dalton wasn't even going to throw to that side of the field. And that completely takes away that. But with Troy Hill, being able to shut down his man, and I mean, he had a tough matchup. He went up against Auden Tate, who is 6'5", and I mean, of course, he's going to make a few catches on him because the height difference and the just the fact he's a physical freak. But I was really, really impressed with Troy Hill, and he made some plays in the red zone that were huge as well.
Yeah, no, certainly an impressive game from him, and obviously there's a reason that he's been around the Rams for a while, and yeah, I agree.
Yeah, final thoughts from the game, because I think it's hard to really dive into this game as much as you'd like to. I mean, obviously there's stuff that we could talk about, but it was against the Bengals. The Rams have won 2 straight, but it's against a combined 1-15 record for 2 teams, so. What are your biggest takeaways from this game? What do you take away from it, and moving into the bye?
I think that the Rams, as a team, are making progress. I don't think that they're playing yet, as good as they can. I mean, we know that they're talented. We know that they can play with the best of them, and they still aren't quite there. But it's been encouraging to see the progress that they've been making, regardless, and just seeing, that they're starting to do the little things correct. Jared Goff has more time, which in turn is, making him less panicked, and he's completing more passes. Like I said earlier, I mean, there's still some things that he's doing that are just kind of, need to be cleaned up, just throws that he's making and things like that. But, stuff that he can turn around fairly quickly. I think the defense is finally starting to mesh together. I think, our receivers they haven't really fell off at all. I mean, they've kind of been consistent all year. We're starting to see people noticing that Todd Gurley is still in the fold. So I just think that, the wheels are starting to turn for this Rams team. I think the bye, like you said, came at the perfect time. I think they should take the bye to really nail down all the things that they've been inconsistent at and just work on it. And, they have a really, really good opportunity to win, against the Steelers team, who has not been playing well at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to ask you a question because I know a lot of people want to trade Brandon Cooks. That's not what I'm going to ask you because I just think it's kind of ridiculous to give up on a guy right after he got hurt. But trade deadline's coming up. Robbie Anderson's out there. There's some other guys obviously out there. Would you trade for a receiver in the wake of potentially Brandon Cooks, with the concussions? Maybe you were worried about him being out longer than, the short term.
No.
Yeah, see, I agree with you because, I think they kind of made the bed and now they have to lay in it. If, Josh Reynolds and Mike Thomas and I'd imagine Nasimba Webster's going to get called up. If those guys aren't enough, then you made the wrong decision, And the thing is, you have to be ready for this stuff to happen. And I think, really, they can combat it with Gerald Everett. Because I think, for whatever reason in this game, they used Gerald Everett more as an inline, and they didn't really flex him out wide like they had been doing. So it was a little confusing there, but I think they could use Gerald Everett on the outside. I think they could use Todd Gurley as a receiver. I think they could use Darrell Henderson. There's so many options to go to, so I see this trade talk, and I don't really get it. Like, unless the Rams are getting, Odell Beckham Jr. and say they're having to give up Cooks, I'd probably do that, but that's about it. Like, I would need, a superstar receiver, and, it's like a swap. I wouldn't want to, trade assets to get a receiver that's going to turn into your fourth receiver when Cooks comes back. You know what I mean? So, and I don't think Robbie Anderson is, he's good, but I don't think he's that much better than Josh Reynolds. I think they're honestly very similar. Robbie Anderson's a lot faster, but I think they're very similar in what they do. So, I agree with you. Is there a position, however, that you would trade for at the deadline?
If I was trading, it would be for probably something on the offensive line.
So, you and I were all in on, going after Trent Williams. Has that ship sailed for you?
Yeah, because we already gave up, so we would have to give up a lot for him, and we already gave up a lot for Jalen Ramsey, so it's just not worth it to me
Yeah, makes
right now.
sense. Well, I mean, he's also not really a long-term option. You're going to have him for what, a year or two. I mean, and then he needs a contract, so you give him an extension, and now it's like he's already up there in age. I think Cordy Glenn actually makes sense. I wonder if the Rams will do that. The reason I say that is Cordy Glenn actually is from Buffalo, and he was with Aaron Cromer. So, I think the familiarity there is really enticing, and you could, I mean, the thing is he plays tackle, right? He's not a guard. I mean, we could see him potentially be a guard. Who knows? I feel though like the Rams are going to stay put, but I feel like if they were going to trade for an offensive lineman, I mean, right now it probably makes more sense than it ever did because you have on one hand Trent Williams who has familiarity with Sean McVay, and then you have on the other hand Cordy Glenn who has familiarity with Aaron Cromer. And those are normally how trades are done because you saw, the Patriots made that trade for Mohamed Sanu, and Bill Belichick has that Rutgers connection with his, his son Steve playing at Rutgers. So you do see that happen often. But yeah, it's something to definitely consider. I don't think they're going to make a trade. I honestly... I don't think they're going to make a trade for anybody. I think they're probably going to end up trading Aqib Talib, which is unfortunate because I'm a huge fan of his. But, I think they're looking at, freeing up some space and, just having that just in case, right? So, maybe Aqib Talib, maybe Samson Ebukam, but that's kind of how I see it. So, any final thoughts? Because I think that's all I got.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. And, I think, like you said, the bye week, I mean, it sucks for us fans because we don't get to watch, but I think the Rams really needed it.
Yeah, I definitely think they needed it. I think it's going to be perfect for an East Coast road game in the cold. I think they'll be ready. And I'm curious to see second half Jared Goff. Right now, he leads the league in passing, which is crazy. So, we'll see. Todd Gurley has a little bit over 300 yards rushing, and Cooper Kupp is, I believe, second in receiving. So, we'll see as this season rolls along. And now, bye gives Jalen Ramsey more of an opportunity to get more comfortable with his new team. He kind of got thrown into the fire, so we'll see. I think this team, they're thinking more long-term, so we'll see. For Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Craft. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. But thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. We will be back later on the week. Alexis and I have something planned. Maybe start talking a little draft because, it is a bye week, and, what else are you going to do during a bye week? So we do have that, in the forefront. But until next time, take it easy, guys. Later.